Before we dive in, if you're wondering what an SDET stands for, it's a Software Developer Engineer in Test. But first, if you haven't already, like and subscribe to my channel by smashing the bell below to get updates every time I release a new video to help you become the hero of all your automation efforts. I first heard about the role of SDET from Microsoft, where it originated years ago. But I think now it's more known within most high-tech companies, mostly located around Silicon Valley. Even though Microsoft has dropped this title, I've seen it listed at companies like Google, Amazon, and many other job postings. So how popular is this term? If you go to Google Trends, you can see the number of times the term SDET is searched within Google. I use this all the time to make sure that I'm working on the right things. By looking at trends to see if it's going up, then it's probably worth my time. If it's going down, it's probably not. It's something I do pretty much every 6 months to make sure I'm recalibrating my skills, to make sure I'm employable. If for some reason I get laid off or I'm looking for a new position, I'm always looking to make sure that I'm growing and that I'm not staying stagnant. One way to do that is to keep on top of trends, to see if you see something going up, you probably want to get on top of it before it becomes critical for you to know the skill before it's too late. Or I like to go to job postings like Simply Hired or Indeed to see how many companies are posting for this position, and for this position, what the skills are that they're requiring for it. So I can see, once again, if there's a trend, if there's something I'm missing, if I see something starting to appear that I've seen previously, I'll start to research it just to get myself, once again, upskill myself to make sure that if I need to look for another position, I'm ready because I have all the skills that I know that these companies are already looking for. So that's a great hack that you can put into place right now, regardless if you're interested in being an SDET or anything within the software industry. With more and more companies shifting left in their software development life cycles, going through this digital transformation you've probably been hearing a lot about, the need to run tests and get quick feedback to the developers is critical. But what I've seen is there's a gap between what developers know at testing and automation and what testers know between development and automation. So that's where the role of SDET starts to come into play. Also, I've seen a shift away from focusing just on automation tests, and companies now looking for folks that could do more full-blown end-to-end automation in pipeline type activities within the DevOps type of practices. And this is why I see this position exploding even more in the coming years. It's a good time to get involved to find out what skills you need to become an SDET yourself. Because of these developer-like activities that all these type of jobs require, it really requires a unique set of skills. Someone who has both a testing set of skills, understands testing, the life cycle of testing, automation, all the tools that go into automation, but also someone that can program, and not just program by cutting and pasting, but someone that has a deeper understanding of higher level concepts that most developers have as well. Enter the role of SDET. And very often the role of SDET involves both white box testing and black box testing, all the way from helping create low-level unit tests to high-level activities like planning, test, and manual testing. SDETs also have the skills that make them perfect resources to create test automation frameworks and tools. Many times they're part of a development team or assist DevOps automation activities like automating infrastructure. So a lot of times, even if you have a hardcore developer and they don't know automation and you try to get them the right automation frameworks, they usually don't do really well. But if you have someone that has a tester mindset, knows about testing, and has developer skills, those are the folks that usually make the best type of folks to create automation frameworks for your teams. So it's a combination of both developer and testing skills merged into one. Having an SDET as part of your code reviews with your developers is also critical, especially if you plan on having your developers focus on test-driven development. So here's the thing. This really is a hybrid type of role, as I mentioned. I've also found that there are many excellent testers on a test team that don't have the technical skills or desire to code, and that's fine. That's okay. They'll keep on doing what they're doing. But I think there's opportunities for more SDETs at most companies to fill the gap between developers and traditional testers. So if you have a mindset where you love to learn more programming skills, you like to be a little more technical, you like to get your hands dirty in code, this might be a perfect role for you. And whenever I mention that SDETs being involved in developer code reviews because developers are going to be writing tests themselves as well, an argument I usually hear is developers can't test because development and testing two different skills that require two different ways of thinking. I think that's going to hold you back if you hold that view. I think there's some validity to some of this, but in general, I think someone can be good at both developing and testing, and also an SDET is one of those people that can fill that role. But also developers can do testing as well. If you don't think so, I know Alan Page, who is one of the most respected testers I know in the industry, wrote a book, and I think in 2008, on how we test software at Microsoft. He doesn't feel that this is an issue either. In fact, with an interview I had with Alan on one of my previous testing podcasts for lessons learned at Microsoft, he told me that almost every developer he knows can write very good functional tests. The key is, though, the caveat is only after being taught how to do so. So really the role of an SDET is being able to have that senior type of role where they understand testing, but they understand the language of a developer as well in order to shepherd developers to say, okay, I'm looking at your code. I'm seeing what you're doing here as a test. Here's something you could do to tweak it, or your code really isn't as good as it could be in order to catch this type of issue. So they're smart enough to be able to write code, be able to speak to developers in the same language, but they also have the skill of being able to look at a test and see whether or not it's a good test or not. So they really are shepherds, they're test leads, and they lead by using developer-centric testing type of skills. So at this point, you're probably asking, how do you get hired as an SDET for one of these big tech companies? One way I recommend is to check job descriptions at hiring sites like Indeed.com, Dice, and Simply Hired. Just like we did with Trends, this is how you can look for skills that are needed as well. So here's just a quick summary of what I found by doing some high-level research in the Boston area on comparing a typical software tester title to an SDET title, so you get an idea of what the differences are between what a company is looking for a software tester compared to an SDET. So typically, a software tester job description is, in any software development lifecycle, a software tester plays a key role in the process. Although many teams have moved to Agile, I still know many testers still report to a quality assurance or engineering quality control department. That's typically the same when you look at these type of roles for a software tester as well. As a tester, you receive a new software build or function at any stage in the software development pipeline, and then you put the program through a variety of tests, documenting the software's response. One of the key components of testing for a software tester is documenting the steps performed in the software testing process. Documentation is especially important since it's often the key in helping programmers and software engineers discover coding problems. So you have to be able to reproduce or create steps that are easily reproducible to developers. So they're able to reproduce on their machines and they can see what you saw and you report it as an issue. Another key aspect of testers' work is finding repeatable crashes and bugs in a program. So some common software tester QA responsibilities you'll find is the ability to evaluate software application solutions for errors and stability, debugging scripts and identifying system flaws, performing both manual and automated testing strategies, developing testing strategies and analysis for software programs, and of course, willingness to learn. That's across the board in any job description. Now compare this to a software developer engineering test job description. Software developer engineers and tests are software developers working within the testing team. So that's the first difference is, so the software development piece is critical because basically you're a software developer first who happens to be working on a testing team. And you have full access to the code, and this carries a variety of responsibilities. One of the key things that set an SDET apart from a tester is being able to access code. They know how to actively participate in debugging. They know how to alter the code as necessary. So they're able to jump into the actual code base of their application. They can make changes in themselves. They can be called into a sprint team to do some coding on the application when needed. Not hardcore coding, but they're able to know enough. They'll be able to make changes. They'll be able to interact as if they were a developer themselves. But they really are focused on the testing piece of the development lifecycle. In this capacity, though, the SDET at times assumes some of the hybrid roles between the developer and tester. You could be called on to do developer activities within a sprint, or you could be called on to do tester type activities within a sprint. This is also sometimes kind of frowned on because you're saying this isn't real agile. Developers should be doing all the roles. But I always find with these type of niches, with software functional testing, with performance testing, security testing, it's really key to have someone that has more of a knowledge base around that type of activity as well. So it's a developer, but it's a developer that has a tester mindset as well. Also, typically between a software tester and SDET, besides functional automation, which usually a tester focuses on, SDETs also focus in on automation testing, but they usually are the ones that create the frameworks and the tools, and then the tester usually implements those frameworks and tools to create the tests themselves. So an SDET is almost sitting above them. So an SDET not only assists developers, but it also assists testers. Also, SDETs typically can also assist with unit testing, security testing, performance testing, and stress testing activities. So they really are a full-fledged tester, almost like a super tester, that can do all these different types of testing roles within the software development lifecycle. Additionally, an SDET normally identifies areas within an application requiring further or different types of testing and helps design and set those tests up. They provide test data. They also participate in administrating them. As an SDET, they also look to identify ways the end user and consumers will work with the software and helps create the best experience possible for the intended user by identifying areas needed to continually adjust. They also usually are involved in setting up infrastructure. I know when I worked for a team as a kind of an SDET type of role, a lot of the developers were creating software, but the software wasn't really pluggable into our Jenkins system. So you needed to work with them to make sure that their application was able to be automated through a pipeline, not functionally, but just automated in general, to get it to a point where you could then start incorporating automation into your pipelines as well. So it's really high-level type automation also, not just lower-level functional testing activities. And to work as an SDET person, typically I say, because I don't have a computer science background, I've learned just on the job. But typically, if you look at job descriptions, they usually ask your educational background, be in programming and computer science. But if you're older like me and you have some gray hairs to prove it, and you have a proven track record or portfolio to show someone you're able to do the work, you can get around this requirement. But if you're a newbie, you do usually need a bachelor's degree in computer engineering or a related field. Also, as you would expect, SDETs are expected to be experts with testing tools and testing frameworks as well, and have the domain knowledge as well to create acceptance tests. And they also have skills commonly found with developers like programming experience, development experience. They know object-oriented programming, understanding all the areas of the development phase. They also modify existing code and understand the technical architecture, software design, and software development process. So if you're going to go on a job interview in an SDET role, I would highly recommend you get used to doing these developer type of interviews where you're able to go to a whiteboard, you're able to talk through some high-level coding examples. Those types of activities you're probably going to be asked to do as well. And you'll probably be asked testing questions. So it's a combination of both. So anything you would do to get ready for a programming interview, there's a lot of books in this subject. You could also apply to an SDET role as well if you were about to go on a job interview for that. Now let's talk about money. Besides skill difference between the two positions of a tester and an SDET, you'll see a significant salary difference between these two roles. So if you were to go to something like pay scale data, it shows the national average for an SDET is around $88,000 a year. It differs between what country and what area you are, but on average, this is just relative. It lists SDET as $88,000 a year, and a software tester on average at $55,000 a year. That's a difference of over $32,000. And this is in the US. If you look in the UK, you'll see the same type of difference as well, with SDETs making significantly more money than someone with a title other than SDET. So if you're also looking to make more money, I would highly recommend looking into skills that folks are looking for as an SDET to make you more valuable in the eyes of your company. So you'll probably get a pay raise as you look at these skills that are required for an SDET type of role. And for the testing piece or the automation piece, keep watching my channel to stay up to date on automation type questions you might be asked on an interview as an SDET or as a tester. So if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to my channel, smash the bell below, and get alerted every time I release a new video. Hope this helped. As always, test everything and keep the good. Cheers.